Hi, it's Hazel. Welcome back to my channel. I am really excited to be here today to do day 41 in the 100-day project for a couple of reasons. Number one, the eye candy involved, and number two, the fact that this reinforces really how powerful and creative we can be and are as journal makers, as crafters, because we get to make decisions. We have options, we make decisions, and those decisions control the final outcome of the project. Now, unfortunately, this is my second attempt at this video. What I've discovered is that if my cell phone rings it doesn't even ring, a call comes in, it stops the video, which is a drag. Although I have to say, I'm glad I took the call about a medical referral from 2020. So, woohoo! Okay, so what I did here, let me just gingerly lift this up. If you saw my video about using a thrifted art canvas to make journal covers, you know that I had excess canvas to cut around the perimeter of the art piece itself. So that's what I did, and of course I wasn't about to throw those things out. Now we know that the substrate for a snippet roll can be anything from fabric to paper to adding machine tape, and I thought I would give the canvas a try. Obviously it you need to kind of go slow and be cautious when sewing. I didn't break a needle or anything, so I thought that was the good news. It does give it a certain stability, though. So basically the way I approach a snippet roll is to try to make sure that I am kind of evenly distributing the different elements that I'm using. Now, my base fabric is this. And you can see the lusciousness, the gorgeousness, the richness of it. And there were smaller pieces, so naturally I took the smaller pieces and left the bigger ones intact. So some of those, I'll show you some of the component pieces. So you can see there's the big floral band. There's this that you can see, appeared here in pieces. There is this golden sort of maroon colored band that appeared here. I didn't use the green, although I did keep it obviously for some future project. The other thing I used was some of this metallic copper, and to be honest, I don't know where this came from. And I don't know if I have any more, but I used it sparingly. I also used some of this lace cut into pieces, as well as this is actually a piece of feels like flannel, or at least on one side it feels like flannel, that came in a grab bag of some quilt pieces, and not that attractive in itself, but I thought, usually what you want is a variety of shades and saturations of color, because that's where you get sort of depth and contrast. The other thing I used, and this is just a tiny scrap of it, is some fabric that I salvaged from a thrifted ladies, little blazer type thing. And it is all these dark brown sort of floral motifs. And so that was that basically. Oh, and tea-dyed, what is this called? Not gauze, but cheesecloth. Is there a prize for remembering that, by the way? So what I did was I first laid out probably the least. And the other thing I used, can I get that without moving heaven and earth? Wait. I had a bunch of these little, this was a digital, sorry, I don't remember whose it was, and there were these lovely little assorted designs. And basically this is a tag shape, and it came in this size and one bigger. So I had all of these printed on something a little heavier on cardstock. I had fussy cut them. I wasn't really using them, so I thought, okay, let that be a unifying another element here, so you can see them tucked through the project. So basically I used tacky glue, Aleene's tacky glue, and it's in this bottle that stands upright, which is pretty handy. It's really thick. I don't know that it needed to be that thick, and I probably could have gotten away with a glue stick as well. But this is what I use, for better or worse. And again, because I was stitching it down, it's not quite as critical that, you get every single element glued down. Oh, another thing I forgot. This is one of those rolls of ribbon, and you can see it's very thin and sheer, and it looks good like that. But what I did was I cut about 4-inch pieces, and I basically just sort of gathered it up a bit like that. And then using a hand sewing needle, and some white thread, I could have probably picked a better color. Basically put in a couple of stitches to hold this together. And then I arranged those throughout, because I thought if I just use this, one thickness, it's probably going to disappear. So I like the look of it so far, but of course we know that, sometimes you're not done till you've added many more pieces. So I had some of these fabric flowers in some colors that I thought would work. I also dipped into my orange button jar, which is actually the smallest jar that I have of any color buttons. And these little buttons are the ones that I think you can get at the dollar store, and they might even have, I think they're probably just glued to a card. Now, what I found as I looked a little further is I have a few of these copper buttons, but hey, hoarding is okay when you only have 3. I also found this one, but we also know that using a shank button, unless it's on the cover, is probably not going to be a good idea because of the depth that it requires, or that it, adds, the bulk that it adds. So anyway, I just kept that stuff aside there. So buttons and flowers. And this is where I'm going to point out some options. My first reaction was to just sort of spread out some buttons. Now these 4 larger ones are not all the same. This one has a little flower design on it. Don't know if you can see that. In fact, these are all different. So I basically just spread them out to get a feel for, is that what I want? Is that what I want? And I thought, well, variety is the spice of life. Why don't I throw in some of these little guys too? And I sort of scattered them around. And then for another possible look, I used the larger of these sort of, I don't know, what is that, like a sort of a marigold color maybe. And I put some of those down. And then I went through one of my brown button jars. And you'll thank me for not doing this on camera. I dumped them out on a tray. I pulled out all the bigger ones or the inappropriate ones and was sort of left with this. Not the greatest sorting, not the perfect, because there were some shank buttons left and so on. I have to say that if you ever feel, you know, blocked and don't know what to do next, dump out your buttons and play and just handle them and look at them and admire them. I know it's noisy for a video, and I wanted to spare you this process, but I'm just saying it is fun. Fun, fun, fun. And of course, I came across buttons that I forgot I even had. And I'll show you. Oh, see, this would be a good one. And I must have, I think it was me. Oh, here's another one that might work. I must have broken the shank off this one. And when it's plastic, well, I guess when it's metal too, you can obviously do that to reduce some of the bulk. So before I totally spill my tray of buttons, I just want to show you, and can you see this? I wanted to show you some of the oddball ones that I found. This almost looks like, you know, rings on a like tree growth, the rings. Gigantic holes. They're not level. I'm picking glue off my fingers. And they have those enormous holes. Not going to use them. These, I think that's all of them, are leather covered. So I think that they probably came off a leather jacket or something. And obviously there aren't many of them. Don't think I want to use them on something like this. These are kind of cool, but again, they have a shank. So unless I were to break that off with my little wire cutters, I probably would not use them. Then you find something like this, which is gorgeous. But again, there's only one. So it seems to me a better use of that kind of a button, or something like this, you know, is more where it can be a focal point, as opposed to just getting lost on a project like a snippet roll. So I'm going to put those aside for now. Found one of these. Now, I didn't go through my cream-colored buttons, but, you know, there may be more of those. It sits fairly nicely. I just think it might be lost here among... I think I want something more visible. Excuse me. And then, of course, I found a lot of brown ones. And I'm just leaving them here kind of in the running, so to speak. I'll get rid of this tray before I knock it down. Oh. Spilled some on the floor. Anyway, okay. So, and this is what I mean about the decision making. So then I thought, well, another thing I could do is group 3 buttons, because, you know, sometimes it's more impactful to do that, especially if there's a variation in size and color, than to dot them here and there, especially little teeny ones like this. Like, yes, they're bright, so they will be noticed because of their brightness, but they're also, you know, it could look like sort of a scattergun, shotgun spray kind of strategy too. So I don't think that I want to really finish this off in front of you, because I have something else that I want to show you instead. But I did want to point out that those options exist. And I haven't even really used any of these orange ones. Now, it seems that to me, I think I'm going to end up using this color as opposed to the orange, simply because I'm getting my orange fix out of buttons. So, and obviously I'll when I'm done with this, I'll take some photos and put it on Instagram or something to show you what my final decision was. at this point, because I've already, okay, let me, I'll take these things off and just keep them off to the side here, so I kind of know what my decision was, because I want to show you the back. Because I've already run this through my sewing machine, first I did a couple of wavy stitches down the middle. Again, the stitching is not really holding things in place. I mean, it is in a sense that it's tacking some loose edges down, but the fabric glue itself did that as well. Now you can see I have some gaps where the canvas is showing. So in the in the end, I may need to, you know, put a dab of glue in places like that just to sort of cover up these thin spots. What I also did was in the end just sort of do a stitch along the perimeter. Now, anything that I add, whether it's flowers or buttons, they will obviously just be glued down. Another thing that I considered, but I thought it was a little too, excuse me, maybe I can, sorry for the rattling, I'm just going to pop a Tic Tac in my mouth and see if that helps. The other thing I considered was something like that, but to me that was too cutesy. And that's not to say that there isn't a place for cutesy. It's just I didn't think it went with the look that I wanted to create. So, as I said, I'm going to put this aside. When I have it completed, I'll show you a picture. I'll put some pictures on Instagram. So, sort of in the vein of mass making, we know that sometimes when we have something out, like if I've gone to all the trouble of picking up or, you know, gathering up my ribbon, my button jars, and so on, it's best to, you know, to sort of keep going. So, let me show you what else I started. This is another piece of the canvas waste. This is vintage wallpaper. You know what? That's the problem when you clean up. Well, clean up, such as it is. Let me just show you. Oh, it is so fragile. That just tore. This is what it looks like. You know, really old stuff. And I love it because of the colors, the little metallic fleck in it. And that seemed kind of perfect for what I was doing here. So basically, I had a long strip and I just glued the whole piece down. You can see where it extends past. So I didn't let it go very far beyond the edge of the canvas because I know darn well it's going to break off. And then I took another piece of this fabric, again, not touching the biggest piece, and I thought, okay, let me see what I can get out of it. So what I then did was I took this border, and initially I had the green and the whatever attached to this side, and I thought, well, no, that basically covers up all the wallpaper. I don't want to do that. So I then started fussy cutting around those gorgeous flowers. And again, you can thank me now or you can thank me later for not making you watch that whole process. But I went further because, again, like these are the biggest, because proportion, I think, is part of the issue here. These tend to be the biggest. These orangey ones were smaller. I then went further and cut out all these little guys. And I didn't mind that some of the black is there because, again, black is a grounding factor in this sort of thing. I then started doing a bit more this morning before I turned on the camera. And I thought, well, okay, let me leave part of it to show. Because again, this is where, so when you look at the pattern, you see that in order for it to look beautiful here, there are things tucked in and behind each other. So if I wanted to isolate this flower, I'd be missing a chunk here where the peony petal covers it. But again, that's where we are all powerful because we get to reshape and work around those kinds of issues. You'll also see that there are these little squirrely, maybe squirrely too, these little metallic swirly things. Well, I may be crazy, but I'm not. I may be insane, but I'm not crazy. I did not. I just threw that straight in the garbage. And I will cut that off as well. That blue leaf is going to be all by itself. It'll go as well. But if I want to reshape a leaf or cut something down because it's kind of annoying, like if this thing was in the way here, I'd chop it off and I would leave those leaves intact. And who knows, I might still do that. I don't know. Anyway, you can probably see that I had to patch here because the remnant piece that I was using wasn't long enough. So, how I would do this is, okay, this piece was, because this was a remnant, there are some pieces that were already sort of torn in half. So that kind of works to my advantage. I could probably put that there. I would probably put the biggest one. Oh, and you can see here, this leaf looks weird because another petal was there. In fact, this petal looks weird. So what I would do, especially if I don't think I'm going to be able to cover it with something else, I would just shape it so it looks less, weird. This leaf maybe should get cut off altogether and just get tucked under something. But I'm not making that decision till I absolutely know that I need to. Now, this, let's see. This is my 18-inch ruler. So it's about 20, I'd say 20, maybe 21 inches long. So it could be that I'm better off fussy cutting around this piece than using these gigantic flowers, because that is a lot of kind of the same thing in a relatively short span. Now, I want to make sure that that seam is covered. So I would position it. And I know that I'm going to, well, okay, if I want to use this flower, I can see already that, yes, it doesn't matter if this extends because that's sort of the nature of a snippet roll. But this thing is a bit bothersome. It's not a whole leaf. So I will just cut around the petal, mutilate the leaf a little bit more, but that's okay. So this is kind of what I would call dry fitting. So I will attempt to position things and see how they're looking. So back to this flower. We know that I had to do something about that leaf, or that petal, I mean. It also doesn't have any black around it because obviously there was something else there. So if I know that I'm going to maybe have to trim something off, or, you know, I might choose to put it like that, or I might choose to put it like so, knowing that there's a good likelihood that something else will cover that there. So again, even those kinds of decisions are within our power. So then I have this, and you can see, again, some mutilated petals here. So maybe I would go for my one that's intact first. And maybe I would angle it a bit. And maybe this one I would choose. I have to keep moving this around so you can see something. Maybe this one I would choose to tuck under there because those petals have been, you know, have been chopped up a bit. Now this is looking kind of very heavy at this end. Maybe we need to slide this over a bit. Maybe I need to work, or maybe something else will cover that. So that's basically what I would be doing here. Again, I would probably end up cutting this leaf off and using it elsewhere. Again, if I were gluing this down for real right now, I would probably take the time to fussy cut this and replace this one because they just seems too big. So let's pretend that that is there. Because, whoops. Oh, maybe I just better cut it out. And again, I'm just doing this really quickly, but you can see that even in this step, I had choices. I could have left this all attached and maybe saved myself some fussy cutting, and also kind of extended my design without having to, you know, burn up any brain cells. Because obviously it was a pleasing design that was already, had already been made by whoever designed the fabric. But again, it's all about the choices. Okay, that makes me feel better. So maybe this one, just for the heck of it, I will turn the opposite way off the one that I have at this end. Again, sort of creating some symmetry there. And I don't know, maybe do I want to do that with this as well? I could, I guess. That way, if I end up having to reshape that petal there, it'll be fine also. Okay, so let me show you some of these other pieces and how they just make me happy. Again, some of that border, this border is peeking through. You know what? I bet you I didn't even have all these big flowers planned for this because this is looking very crowded right now. Let's put this guy in the middle and see what we get. It's almost like doing a jigsaw puzzle in that you get to play around with these things. And unlike a puzzle, there are multiple options. You know, maybe this one I tuck underneath the border and it looks a bit more like some layering went on. Maybe I just choose to use one of these and work in more of these small pieces. Again, we've got a problem there with that petal. So maybe I go like so and just sort of reshape it. And again, I know that I'm saying the same thing over and over again. Plus, I have these that I can do as well. And none of this effort that I spent fussy cutting is going to go to waste because, of course, it can be used in some other project. I could have this like so and cover it with one of these things. And I think because there's a lot going on here, a lot of, see, that little thing does not show to advantage because it was burgundy on burgundy. So I would change that around. And again, you know, some people are going to probably think, well, why is she spending so much time putzing around with this? I guess my point is that if I'm going through this effort, I want it to be pleasing to my eye. I kind of want to use some tried and true design principles. And I know some people are all about breaking the rules, and that's great. That's a personal choice. And I also believe that sometimes you have to know the rules before you can break them. So I think that I'm pretty happy with this as it stands. Maybe I need something a little bigger here because it's kind of a lot of small elements all together. So I can bring in my peony. I can move this to the end. I can decide where I need a splash of a certain color and maybe put that there. Now, this is a bit obvious that it's, so just, you know, sort of taking off that sharp corner already makes a difference. And if I do end up adding some other elements, or I could even make it disappear by putting it underneath there, or putting it sort of burgundy on burgundy. You know, so that might be kind of a last minute call. I'm inclined to have it like so, though. Now, before, I was going to say, before I glue it down, I might think about other things I want to add. Now, I don't know where oh yeah, I still have some of this lace within reach. Now that's probably looking a bit white in comparison, so I could either, you know, throw this in a cup of tea and just get it, you know, a bit stained. I could look through other lace scraps and see if I already have something that is maybe a better color. I could reach for some of the cheesecloth, you know, because this flower here looks a bit isolated. it looks a bit just like it was plunked down there. Whoops. So if I sort of spread this out, it would help cover my seam in that border. And I could get that sort of wispy look poking out. And that already looks a little more interesting. Now I'm probably trying to use a scrap piece that is too small here, but clearly I have more. So I think I'm going to, let me see the time. We're at kind of the 35-minute mark. I think I'm going to, I was going to say stop there, but yeah, I should probably stop there, not take up more of your precious time with this video. I'm torn because part of me thinks, okay, go ahead, and then you're not going to continue putzing. You'll actually have to start gluing something down. I think what I'm going to do, okay, let me make my declaration. I'm going to add a few more scraps of this cheesecloth for the reasons I've said, to soften, to add another layer of interest and tactile wispiness. And because I didn't do that as sort of a base layer, I'm now going to have to lift these things up one by one and hope that I don't wreck my positioning. And again, if some extend past the edge, so be it. I mean, that's great. It softens up the edge. If it doesn't, that's okay too, because frankly, this one has kind of a different aesthetic to it, with me using the really clean-cut edges and using a one long piece of border as well. Those are straight edges also. So I'm not that concerned if things don't extend past. If they extend just a tiny bit, that's okay. But it's really going to be quite a contained look. So I will stop here, but I'll keep on working, and I'll be able to show you through Instagram a couple of these pieces, a couple of these snippet rolls when they are complete. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that if you have, and again, it doesn't have to be a canvas, I just wanted to play around with it, but if you have something that you can use as a substrate for your own snippet rolls, then I really hope you try some of these suggestions that I've made. I want to say that I've also thrifted, back in the day when people used to make pinch pleated drapes for their windows. Quite often you can buy a roll of the interfacing, 3 or 4 inches in height, that would have been used in the header for the pinch pleats. So I have that. I've made snippet rolls using that, and I think it's really pretty nice in that it's got some stability to it, stabilizer, and it also is a pre-cut thing. I mean, it's you just need to lop off a chunk the length that you want, but the width is already predetermined. So yeah, using, again, paper, fabric, adding machine paper, interfacing, that sort of thing will obviously give you a place to begin, and yours will turn out different than mine has or that anyone else on the planet has, because you will be using different component pieces. So by all means, give it a try, because it's definitely gorgeous and worth the effort. I just hope that once I'm done with these, that I do have the the strength to use them, because I can't tell you how much I love this. Maybe it just becomes a decoration here in the studio. I don't know. Anyway, you can see how this is shaping up. It will not be a surprise to you, or not that big a surprise to you. And I can almost promise that I will not be adding anything else to this one, because I love the sort of the pared down look of it. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.